What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Lazy Delicious. My name is Max and we're doing our first recipe video today and I'm so excited. We're kicking it off with a bang, jalapeno corn carbonara. This is kind of like the quintessential Lazy Delicious meal here. You guys, so easy to make, it's cheap, and it's so good. It may not be the healthiest meal, but you know, we're adding our jalapenos and our corn. Those add that extra nutrition, and then they also add a little bit of that spicy sweet flavor that works so well with the salty creaminess of a carbonara. This is like a household staple for us. We eat this all the time, rain or shine. It's like the perfect budget meal if you're trying to cut back 1 week. It's just awesome. And so in terms of what you're gonna need about 12 ounces of pasta. Now my wife does have a gluten allergy, and so we're a gluten-free household. And our favorite brand is Colavita. They make really good gluten-free pastas. They add starch in there so you can actually use the pasta water. And in terms of the type of pasta, I would say spaghetti or linguine are probably my two go-tos. If you want to be fancy, you can use bucatini. But the one thing I would say is in terms of your spaghetti, make sure it's a thicker spaghetti. Thin spaghetti overcooks really fast and you need that chew of the al dente pasta. And then next up here, we just got two little jalapeno guys here. We got about a half cup of corn, and so this is just canned corn that was drained and rinsed. And then for our sauce here, we got 2 whole eggs, and we've got about 3 ounces of pecorino romano. And then also here we have about a teaspoon each of white and black pepper. Normally you would just use black pepper, but I like adding white pepper into the mix too because you get that earthy pepperiness of the black pepper, and then you get that bright spiciness of the white pepper, and they work so well together. And then last but not least, we got about a half pound of our thick cut bacon here that is just so good. I know I'm probably going to get a little bit of slack for using bacon, but you know, I live in the US. Guanciale is like $25 to $30 a pound. It's just insane. It defeats the point of this dish. And I know too, if you don't have guanciale, use pancetta. Pancetta is pork belly ham. And I know I might be simplifying that a bit, but it is pork belly ham. It is bacon, but it's cured for way longer to the point where it's ham. And so I've used it before, I just really don't like it. It doesn't have as good of a texture, and it just tastes hammy to me. And so in my personal recommendation, you wanna go ball out and be fancy, use guanciale, go and splurge on some guanciale. Don't use pancetta. It is expensive, and in my opinion, just really not worth it at all. And so that's kind of my spiel there for a bit. But that's really all you'll need here. You're gonna, of course, want some extra pepper and some extra pecorino for topping in the end. But let's go ahead and dive in. To kick things off, let's go ahead and prep our jalapenos. Go ahead and cut off the stems. Then you're gonna stand it upright and just run your knife down the sides, get little slices. Make sure you avoid the seeds and the membrane as much as possible. That's where all the spice of the jalapeno is, and we don't want the spice, we just want the flavor. And then for each slice, you're going to put your knife a little bit from the end of the jalapeno and just drag it down to create little matchsticks. This is just going to make it really easy for you to dice up those jalapenos, and then you can cut up that little bit at the end there as well. Repeat this for the rest of the jalapenos, and you should end up with a nice little pile. Now let's prep our bacon, and we're going to go for a similar dice like we did with the jalapenos. So take your hunk and just go ahead and cut it in half, and then you're going to cut lengthwise for each half. This is going to make it a lot easier for you to just cut across and get nice little squares of bacon. Again, you want to make sure you're using thick cut bacon here, and the main reason is because when you cook it down, you want it to be crispy but also a little bit chewy, and if it's too thin, you won't get that chewiness that is just such a nice texture in the carbonara. Now let's go ahead and start frying up that bacon. You'll want to get your pasta water going at the same time just because they should start boiling once the bacon is done. Go ahead and toss a few handfuls of salt into there and get the heat on it. Let's go ahead and toss in our bacon in the pan, and we'll do a low heat to start with, just to start rendering out that fat. And once that fat's rendered out, we'll go ahead and crank up the heat so we can get a nice fry in that fat. Now while our bacon's cooking, we'll go ahead and make our egg and cheese mixture. Get out a bowl and start grating down that pecorino romano. Make sure that you grate that down to the rind. We don't want to waste any of that cheese. You should have a nice healthy mound of that pecorino inside that bowl. Then we'll just go ahead and we'll crack in 2 full eggs. Some people like to use some yolks, some full eggs, or just all yolks. I don't see a reason to separate it at all. Just go ahead and crack 2 eggs in that bowl. And then we'll go ahead and just start whisking that up. Now the mix should finally end up in a kind of thick paste consistency, and that's what we want. That's going to turn to a beautiful sauce once it mixes with that bacon fat and all that pasta water. And let's go ahead and finish it off by adding a couple sprinkles of that pepper mix into there. And now your sauce is ready to go, and we'll go ahead and just put that away until we're ready to use it. Check back in on your bacon, and once it's swimming in its own fat, give it a quick toss just to make sure everything's coated. And then you're going to crank your heat up to a medium. This is going to give us that glorious crunch, and it should really only take about 4 or 5 minutes. Now that your bacon's done cooking, go ahead and remove it from the pan, but leave the fat in there. Now I forgot to clean a pair of tongs before this point, so I had to fat finger every last piece of bacon out of there with a spatula, but you should really use tongs so you can avoid this. Cue the montage. It's painful, just use tongs. Anyway, with the bacon out of the pan, you should be left with a beautiful pool of that bacon fat. You'll just want to keep that on a low heat for when we saute the jalapenos. Once your pasta water is boiling, go ahead and toss in your pasta and cook it to al dente based on the package instructions. After you throw it in, you're just going to want to use tongs to twirl it around in that water. This just helps make sure it doesn't stick together, and so toss it around for about 10-20 seconds. While our pasta's boiling, we're going to saute up our jalapenos. Toss them into that bacon fat and make sure that you get every last jalapeno. And then you're just going to swirl it around in that bacon fat, make sure everything gets nice and coated. And just saute for about 3 or 4 minutes. Once your jalapenos have softened, go ahead and throw in your corn and then mix everything up just to get everything coated in that bacon grease. We're really just heating up the corn, so just saute for 1 or 2 more minutes. Now add your bacon into the pan to heat it back up, and we're actually going to cut the heat here because we don't want the pan to be too hot and scramble our egg cheese mixture. Just give it a quick toss to make sure everything's incorporated and covered in that fat, and now we're ready for our pasta. Now that our pasta's cooked to al dente, and grab a test noodle to make sure it's al dente, we're going to grab a pair of tongs and take the pasta from the pot straight into the pan. Do not drain your pasta, you'll lose all that pasta water. And this way we can have as much as we need. And then when you take it straight from the pot, you also add a little bit of pasta water from the get-go. Just make sure your tongs are always face downwards so that boiling water does not trickle down your hand, and I speak from experience. Once you've snagged all your stragglers from the pot, we're going to toss our pasta in with that bacon grease. We just want to make sure it gets coated on every strand of pasta so that when we add our egg and cheese mix, it all just emulsifies into that beautiful rich sauce. Now it's time to bring that glorious carbonara sauce together. Grab your egg and cheese mix and put that into the pan. Really scrape that bowl clean as best you can. You need every drop of that cheese mix so it's as creamy and cheesy as possible. Once you have added in all your mix, toss your pasta together and really agitate it. And as you keep tossing, you should see it slowly get creamier and creamier as it all emulsifies together. Now, depending on how much water came with the pasta when you were putting it into the pan, you might not need to add more pasta water. And so I like to add a little bit at a time if I do need to. The sauce should pool slightly at the bottom, but should still be thick and creamy. And I mean, just look at that. Serve up your carbonara in a bowl, and then for the finishing touches, add another sprinkle of that pepper mixture. And then we're gonna just grate a little more of that pecorino romano cheese over top. You can never have too much cheese. And there you have it. That's the finished product, and it is a bowl of just pure delight. I mean, look how good that looks. All right, and so there it is, our jalapeno corn carbonara. I'm so excited. This is just one of my favorite meals, man. Oh, yeah. I'm not being dramatic. It's so good. It's so cheesy. The pepperiness, the bacon, the corn. It's like bacon and corn just go so well together. And the corn and the cheese sauce is almost kind of like an Italian elote flavor. It's just so good. Oh my God. And so yeah, that's really it. Spaghetti alla carbonara with jalapeno and corn. A little extra nutrition, but the same classic dish that is just unbeatable. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish off this bowl. I won't make you watch. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you like my videos and you want to make sure you don't miss any future recipes, please go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Again, thank you guys, and stay lazy.